Hi, my name is Teresa. I've lived and worked in the UK for over 15 years. Grew up in New Zealand, went to university in New Zealand and shown in my qualifications. But today I wanted to talk about how I used PowerShell to solve a problem. I was in a multifunctional team and we had a couple of projects, and one of them was to decommission servers. So we had some server targets. The 2012 servers were automatic decoms. The 2008 and 2012, these servers, we wanted more information, and that was due to ownership drift and server appropriation. And we just wanted to also get approval for decommission. And I was in a large enterprise company. I was new to the company. So I had quite limited server access. So I had a few constraints, and there were business and technical silos. It was really difficult to navigate within the company. And also I didn't have access to a database, which you really need if you want to look at data and analyze it and store it. So how did I solve this problem? So my cunning plan, was to use Bladelogic. I used Bladelogic, for people who don't use this tool, is used for patching and installing software on servers. I then focused on PowerShell version 3, this because this version was the lowest common denominator on the 2008 and 2012 servers. And then the commands we're looking at within PowerShell were WMI, which is read-only, and then export CSV, which meant I didn't actually need a database, so I could collect the results and then pipe it straight into a spreadsheet. Then my Decomp profile that I created for the servers included quite a few options, but like last reboot, which is a good indicator on Windows box. If it's not being managed, it won't be rebooted, so it's a good way of looking at it. And also recent profiles. Then the script tested in dev under change control, and I was given a Bladelogic resource. Also in my script, when I wrote it, I had because I was using Bladelogic agent, I didn't have much visibility, so I put a loop in it with a timeout value. And actually, if you use like serverless compute, like AWS Lambda, it's like a timeout value, so that was the idea behind that in my script. I'm just going to show you briefly. I know people probably don't use PowerShell much. I'm just going to quickly go over a little bit of the script. So this is like one of the attributes. Basically shows the last reboot. It's a WMI, and then the export CSV piping. In green are the properties that are in the resulting file, and then in blue, here I'm formatting the date and time because I'm collecting data from servers globally. They were different time zones, and also they were in a different display format. So I needed to reformat that data, and then you could compare it in the spreadsheet. And the second example, this WMI command is looking at last 5 years of logins. And I guess the reason these commands what I'm doing, the WMI commands get quite large because I'm sanitizing the data. And I guess there's two thoughts here. It's like a lot of people will either scrape their data, so you scrape a whole website, you dump it into a database. But here I'm collecting just the bits I need, and then I pipe it, and it's clean into a spreadsheet. So again, in green are the properties that end up in the file, and in blue I filter out things I don't want, like the SIDs, like system, local, service, and network service. Right. And then the overall information gathering pipeline, I use Bladelogic. The Bladelogic agent runs a PowerShell script on the servers, which is brilliant because I didn't have to configure any remote access, which is a real problem with PowerShell. then the agent copied the resulting files into a central repository, and from there I ran another PowerShell script which collated them from many files into one. And so then I just end up with one spreadsheet, and each sheet represents a Decomp attribute, like last reboot, and the data's all clean for making a business decision about whether what that use that server was. And this talk I originally gave to a PowerShell meetup, and so I was talking to them about the constraints I faced in this project, and that brought me on to DevSecOps. And I was saying that some of DevSecOps is a methodology, it's more about collaboration, and it would have made the project probably run a little bit better if the silos weren't so defined. And that slide is actually from Mohammed Imran. So I think he's given a talk to you before. But my last slide is contact by the PowerShell Slack workspaces. And thank you, Michael, and everyone.